JJ McCarthy will be a top 15 pick in the NFL draft. Regardless of if you believe that or not, that is of the mind frame that you must operate within and prepare for and anticipate in Dynasty. This video is designed to be that public service announcement to Dynasty players and the community in general as to why, at the minimum, you need to consider JJ McCarthy at or near the top of your consideration at the pick 108 at a worst. Before we just jump into this, guys, I just want to say thank you for the continued love and support. We're growing. We have a 1K by draft day target, lofty goal, I know, but we're getting there slowly but surely. If I haven't earned your sub yet, let me know in the comments why not. Committed to continuous growth and development here, as is the team that will draft JJ McCarthy. Dynasty fantasy football is inherently, fundamentally, a proactive game. So why stress or lean heavily on the retroactive? What I mean by that, and this is not a specific shot at any one person or platform in terms of certain predictive models, but ultimately, on a micro level, I'm not going to form majorly, singularly, or for the most part, my view or opinion of a player based on some one-size-fits-all model. I'm just not going to do that. Why lean in on what happened in the past in a college setting? What happened in the past is no guarantee of what's going to happen in the future. We can try to believe that, we can assume that, but you know what happens when you assume? And so ultimately, where I am is taking into account what the NFL teams, what we're hearing, the league, the association, the group of decision makers that formulate inherently our decisions as fantasy players for NFL players, right? I am of the operating position. The only guarantee in this transition for all of these players, regardless of position, the only guarantee is change. Change can be good, change can be bad. But that's the very nature I want to embrace. I want to embrace the ambiguity. People say JJ McCarthy sucks. He's horrible. Or some people are saying, look at him, best quarterback in Michigan history, on track to be the next MVP of the NFL. Regardless of whatever extreme it is, you have to, where I am ultimately operating is somewhere in the middle, somewhere in between. The answer, the outcome, the true outcome, it's somewhere in the gray. That's why I'm wearing gray. And frankly, the outcome of the stamp, so to speak, logo of this channel outlined in gray, because you have to embrace the ambiguity. It's not as cut and dry as black and white. As much as we like to make it out to be, and as much as humans we love to make sense of things as however we may see fit. But ultimately, the answer is in the gray with JJ McCarthy, and I am going to continue to be, a glass half full guy with how I'm operating. And we talk about change, right? This notion of change for the good, change for the bad. Ultimately, JJ McCarthy is going to be playing for a new team, not named the Michigan Wolverines. What happened at Michigan? Well, I already know that you know and you've heard of this drawn out. Obviously, what happened? They were a run-first team. At Michigan, they ran the ball in the top 10 bordering percent. They had a run-pass ratio of 60-40. 60-40 in the opposite way, effectively, of the modern NFL game. Now, we'll see what Jim Harbaugh does at the next level there with the Chargers. But JJ McCarthy, I think we can safely say he's not going to the Chargers. They've got a guy over there named Justin Herbert. JJ McCarthy played in a situation that was conducive to running backs, obviously, but ultimately still a professional system, a pro system, a system where Harbaugh, who's had success at all levels of football, right? So JJ McCarthy, you think about going from a team that threw the ball less, for all you college football watchers out there that are familiar with the game, threw the ball less than Iowa. That's kind of crazy to say, but Michigan threw the football less times per game than the Iowa Hawkeyes. As much as people like to meme that team, that is some crazy perspective there. So you go from a team that only throws the ball every 2 out of 5 plays, right? What does the modern NFL look like? The modern NFL, the 49ers were the highest rushing rate team in the NFL last year. What was their rate? Well, sub 50%, 45%. The most often team that ran the ball at a 45% clip, less than half the time. Not 3 out of 5 times, 60% of the time that the Michigan offense did. And I want to really emphasize that you can't paint a broad brush as to J.J. McCarthy is terrible because of, Michigan's tendencies, the tendencies of a team. There are obviously 10 other players on the field on his team at one point in time. You have to apply some nuance and some context as to J.J. McCarthy and his past, obviously, as a player at Michigan, and potentially what his future holds. And I key stress on the potential, the future, because if a team drafts him in the top 15, which the most likely landing spot by odds right now, last time I checked, you look at the Vikings, then you got the Raiders, the Broncos mixed in there. You look at NFL mock draft database. I love forming those macro trends, an aggregator, a tool, a resource where you look at the consensus big boards. J.J. McCarthy. Where does J.J. McCarthy lie on the consensus big board? He is at roughly inside the top 30 firmly. Then you look at consensus mock drafts. You're seeing 12, the Broncos, the most popular spot right now. And I don't necessarily want to harp on that landing spot, but even just that range is the most likely. That 10 to 15 range. Shout out to BGDE, their new Dynasty channel. They just talked about Nick Arcolano over there, looking at the hit rate, or just reality of, for the last decades, players drafted within that 10 to 15 range. Sure, there's the EJ Manuels of the world. Sure. But there's also guys like Pat Mahomes. And ultimately, do I think he's going to be Pat Mahomes? No. Do I think it's going to be EJ Manuel? Also, no. I think it's somewhere in between. And I think if he goes in that range in the NFL draft, truly, that only potentially bodes better for him than maybe a Jaden Daniels, Drake May that gets picked by the Patriots, or maybe even the Commanders, who knows. But in theory, a team that didn't play awful enough on the field to earn one of those top picks, but to rather be kind of in and around that middle third of the NFL. That just inherently, you would like to think there's more resources. There's just a better organizational system to build around, right? And if you're going in the first round, especially in the top half, what is the plan for you to be that next franchise quarterback? And that's the bet ultimately that the team that picks J.J. McCarthy is going to make. And for you or I or anybody to then just say, I'm totally fading that bet, I'm not going to touch J.J. McCarthy in rookie drafts, that is asinine in my view. Totally, totally asinine in my book. And so let's just revisit. I want to revisit and stress, look, he's certainly not walking into Michigan, obviously, in the NFL. Michigan college does not equal NFL. Michigan does not equal mystery team ? Let me know where you guys think he goes, honestly, in the comments. But I want to stress that because, look, a lot of change, a lot of transition will, of course, take place. But you're also not just dropping a 21-year-old J.J. McCarthy into the NFL tomorrow. There is going to be a whole timeline for the team and J.J. McCarthy, the staff, the resources, to try to mold and put him in the best position they possibly can. And then it's down to the player to execute. And you look at J.J. McCarthy's skill set. He can run the ball. He's an athletic player. He's got pedigree as a recruit. Things that matter. He won some football games. And again, I'm not trying to say that's any end-all be-all. There are multiple shapes, sizes, different flavors. Recipes for success. And that's what we have to embrace as well. Wake up, open your eyes, prepare. Because when I see keep trade cut, when they just released the rookies, and I think, look, people reacting as a community, I think especially for as reactive as the Dynasty community can be in season, in this early offseason, in January, February, March, pre-combine in particular, can be a little bit slow to the curve. And that's so evident with keep trade cut. I mean, you're telling me J.J. McCarthy is QB 22? Basically the cohort of Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson? Are you kidding me? And I look, keep trade cut, basically 84 overall for Superflex leagues? Really? You're telling me the 7-8 turn is where you're expecting J.J. McCarthy, where you're ranking him initially? And look, maybe it's a little bit of a shock factor, and some, on a psychological level, I can acknowledge J.J. McCarthy right now, but it's almost some mental bargaining people are doing. But ultimately, you have to recognize J.J. McCarthy as a top half of the first round NFL draft pick, not being a 7-8 turn startup value. Rather, you look at, well, on a comparison, Flock Fantasy and their community. Shout out to all those guys, Mason, everybody over there. The community rankings, they haven't as much forced in the true rookie names relative into the whole body of startup rankings or startup value, so to speak, but they have the pick itself. So the pick itself, I say, again, J.J. McCarthy, 108, the 108 rookie pick on those Flock community rankings, sensibly has that right in between, look, the 107, 108, right in between, well, Justin Fields, Jared Goff. That is much more sensible, and that is much more of the rationale that you have to apply. Right in between, more of a QB 18, QB 19 range. Could very well climb up into a QB 16, QB 15, a top 15 quarterback in Dynasty, guys. And that value we're talking is not the 7-8 turn. That's more of the 3rd, 4th round at the latest. I mean, just come on. If anything else, I just want this video to stress the answer is in the gray, and ultimately, do not engage or subscribe totally to the extremes in terms of discourse. Always try to stray away from that and apply, of course, your own judgment and your own individual nuance. And hey, what the hell do I know, right? You can totally fade me, and that's within your right. I'm just trying to offer some perspective and some thought exercises here, as we'll continue to do in more videos, guys. And with that being said, drop a like, sub. We're on that 1K by draft day grind. I'll see you guys. Have a great week.